What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV here, back here for another Tottenham update. I'm here with Henry Wright from Henry Wright TV. How we doing, Henry?
Do you know what? I'm very, very good. It's been a busy, busy day at work, but there's a lot to get through today. So much transfer news. Like every single day, there's more and more news coming out. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm good to be back. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
No, thanks for coming on. Just before we get into everything, I mean, we were having a few discussions before a couple of weeks ago now. Are you content and happy with what Spurs have done so far?
Do you know what? The last Tottenham update I did with Sim, I was kind of on the fence a lot. I don't want to say I was negative, but I just wanted more from, Tottenham.
As
And
you always do.
yeah, I mean, as a football fan, it's never good enough.
Of course,
That's just
yeah.
We look at Man City; they've just signed a Haaland, but they still want more. Like I am happy with what Paratici and Conte and Levy are doing. I still think maybe on the creativity side we lack a little bit, but we're building for the future. Udoje, Matasar, Kulusevski. The last one on Spurs put out something the other day that majority of our squad now are under the age of 26. Even Richarlison and Basuma. So we are looking to build long term under Conte, which is good because he's not really a long term manager. He kind of comes in, wins the league, and then goes off and does his own thing.
Yeah.
Where you look at the other teams around us, Klopp, Guardiola have come in, completely rebuilt their squad, and now they're winning major honours. So that's kind of the pathway we're trying to take.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, and it's just the case of. Because I don't think Conte ever goes into a job thinking, oh, I'm going to do a quick job, win the league and leave. I think there's always circumstances there why he ends up leaving. And if Levy doesn't give him those circumstances to give him the excuse to leave, then there's no reason why he shouldn't be here for a long time, right?
Yeah, exactly. If Levy gives Conte the tools to do the job, there's no excuse for him to go. There's no excuse unless he has a drastic falling out with a player or kind of like the way Mourinho happened at United. It was either Pogba or Mourinho. Unless a situation like that happens, then he looks happy. He's not saying anything, anything in the dugout. After that Burnley loss last season, it was kind of, we're all kind of playing a tug of war match. But you saw the Southampton result. We didn't have the best of starts, but you saw the emotion from this guy on the touchline. He's a born winner. He wants to win. He hasn't come here. I've said this all year on my channel. He has not come here to fight for top four. He's come here to win a league title. Whether that takes 2 or 3 windows or a couple of years, we'll get there hopefully.
Yeah, I agree. But let's get into the transfer news now. Let's start off with Destiny Udogie. We obviously got the here we go from Fabrizio Romano a day or two ago, and he has updated us saying that Tottenham are prepared to schedule medical tests for Udogie in the next days. The Italian fullback will return to Udinese, where he's going to stay on loan. Fabio Paratici and Antonio Conte are in love with Udogie, and they are convinced he could be the future of Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, that's high praise from Antonio and Fabio. Have you seen much of him? And if not, I mean, what have you heard and how are you thinking of this transfer?
I'd be lying if I said I've seen much of him, but I've looked at like his stats and I've watched a few clips of him, and I think he was up there with Perisic last year with the highest goal contributions for a wingback. I think he's had something like 37 or 38 appearances for Udinese and got 8 goal contributions in a tough league for a team like Udinese. The question I've got to a lot of fans and maybe to yourself is, should we not be bringing him in now? If Reguilon, the likelihood is Reguilon will depart this window or January. He didn't go to Korea for the preseason. So would it not make sense to bring him in now? But then I get it. Part of the deal was Udogie. The only reason that Udinese would sell to us is Man City and a few other teams wanted him now, and they said no, we'd have him 1 more year and then he can go. So I look at it both sides. He's going to get the more development and he's going to get a full season with Udinese. If he comes right now to Tottenham, he's probably not going to get a lot of games. So I'm kind of like, I'm on the fence of it, but I'm happy about the signing. He's like I said a minute ago, he's building for the future. I think he's only 19 with a massive potential. So
I think the way I look at it is that right now, Reguilon aside, I mean, I'm not even taking into account Reguilon as part of the squad anymore. I don't even consider him part of the squad. But you're looking at Sessegnon, who obviously had a brilliant game in the opener against Southampton. You've got Ivan Perisic waiting in the wings as well. And I actually think that's enough to take us through this season. I think it will be enough as with rotation and stuff like that. Next season, when he comes in, you're looking at Perisic going into the last year of his contract as well. So you don't know how a player is going to react when they're 34 going on 35. And I think if Adoji can come in and fight with Sessegnon and Perisic, it also gives maybe a kick off Perisic's backside. And maybe you're thinking, do we renew Perisic's contract at the end of that? Maybe it gives us an opportunity to be a bit more flexible with what we do with Perisic if we do bring Adoji in next summer.
Yeah, you know, I agree with that, to be honest. I mean, Perisic is a top player. You saw when Sessegnon had a great game at the weekend, but I feel like with Sessegnon sometimes he doesn't always take his man on. He's a confidence player. If you stick a rocket up him and say, go and take your man on, he will. But Perisic comes on instantly because that's the winger in him. You know, just was straight down the byline, putting balls in the box. You know, you saw it. You were in the South Stand, I'm assuming. You saw him in the second half. He was putting balls in the box. Whereas Sessegnon in the first half, he kind of looks... He looks like he's got the... I mean, the finish, the offside finish second half was like a Harry Kane. And he took his goal really well. It's a brilliant header. We just need to see more of that. If Sessegnon can do, you know, 6 to 8 goals or, you know, 15 or goal contributions, 13 or goal contributions, and we've got Perisic there as well, you know, you're loving it. But can we get that on a consistent basis? That's what I'm asking Sessegnon now.
I think people forget actually how young Sessegnon actually is, because I know he's been around the block for quite a while, made his name when he was 16 or something at Fulham in the Championship. So, I mean, he still has a long way to go, Sessegnon, but I'm liking the gradual improvements I'm seeing from him, that's for sure. And I think probably on the weekend was definitely one of his best performances in the Spurs shirt. So let's see if he can do that consistently now, that's for sure. Let's move on and let's talk about Nicolo Zaniolo. I mean... Everyone's been talking about Zaniolo for a while now. A publication out in Italy called Radio is saying that Tottenham are pushing hard to sign Zaniolo. Antonio Conte has requested him, but Jose Mourinho has objected to his sale. Paratici is talking to Roma, and a deadline for the deal has been set for this weekend. What's your opinions on Zaniolo coming to Spurs, and do you think it's a deal that we should be pushing through?
I like Zaniolo as a player. I mean, out of all the playmakers you've looked at, you know, Paqueta has been linked a couple of times. Seems a good player. James Maddison would be my ideal signing. Me and Sim had quite a big debate, and I think Maddison's top draw. But Zaniolo, it gives us a different element to James Maddison because he can play out wide. You know, we don't really play of a playmaker in the middle. When we play at our best, Kulu tucks in and kind of goes into the middle role. I mean, Kulusevski is, you know, a top player. We're looking at one of the all-time greats, hopefully, in a Spurs shirt. If we can add Zaniolo in that mix, and for the forward line, we've got Zaniolo, Kulusevski, obviously Kane, Son, Perisic, if he plays up there now and then, and Richarlison, there's no excuse. I was just saying about give Conte the tools. They're the tools. Zaniolo seems to be a top player. He scored the winner in the Conference League final last year for Mourinho. And if Jose is saying, no, I want to keep him, then clearly Jose Mourinho rates him highly. I think this could get very messy very quickly because it's Levy against Roma, and obviously Jose Mourinho, you know, and Levy kind of fell out. So if we didn't get Zaniolo, I'd expect us to go straight away and go get someone else. We have to bring a creative, you know, player in, whether it's Paqueta, Maddison, Nabil Fekir, Zaniolo. It has to be someone, you know. But there's a few clubs looking at him. I know Juventus were looking at him last year. Just in the back of my mind, there's always that. You know, he's had 2 ACL injuries and he's only, 21, 22? Yeah. But then again, he played something like 36 games last year. So he can do it. And I'm sure Conte will look after him. So what are your thoughts? Because obviously every single day there's Zaniolo links.
My personal preference is Zaniolo out of all the players that we've been linked with in that position. My reason being is that when you're looking at James Maddison, and I completely grant you that James Maddison is a quality player, I'm not saying anything against that, but I just don't see where James Maddison fits into our system. I just can't see him getting consistent minutes, getting enough minutes to keep him happy. Whereas you look at Zaniolo and Richarlison, they actually fit the system that we're playing in, where Zaniolo can compete with Kulusevski. And not only that, but Zaniolo can also play a bit deeper as well. So I think Zaniolo is just like perfect in terms of positionally and fitting into the system, where as opposed to a James Maddison, I don't see where he fits in, to be honest. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, that's the other thing with Maddison. He plays predominantly in a 4-3-3 in the middle, and obviously we have a man midfield, either in a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2, depending on what we play. So Bissouma and Bentancur should be, well, in my opinion, the two we play in the middle. I don't want to take either of them out for James Maddison. I don't think Maddison would play out wide, whereas Zaniolo, like I said, he can come in. I mean, if you're saying Kane and Son, they've got to get used to sitting on the bench this season. If we want to compete on all avenues, they have to. They can't. Kane can't do 40, 50 game season plus a World Cup. So Zaniolo coming in, Richarlison coming in, it's all about squad depth. And I think, I wouldn't be disappointed having them two come off the bench or them two starting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what options to have as well? What options to have?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, that's Zaniolo. Let's talk about Memphis now, because actually we brought you a story on WeAreTottenhamTV yesterday that Spurs and Juventus are fighting it out for Memphis Depay, but Romano has completely pushed back on that last night, and he says Tottenham are not interested in Memphis Depay. There are no talks as things stand at the moment. Me personally, with Memphis Depay, I just think, I know it's a bit contrary to what I said with Zaniolo, because he's also had his injury problems. But I think Memphis, his injury problems, his ego, and everything that comes with him in the package with Memphis Depay, I just don't think it's a good deal for us, to be honest. Even though it would be a free transfer, he'll come on for quite hefty wages. And we've seen how that can sting us in the past with players like Tanguy and Ndombele. But what's your opinion on Memphis?
Do you know what? When Depay was at Lyon, he was a great player. He was tearing it up in Champions League, in the Europa League, and in Ligue 1. He got his big dream move to Barcelona, and it hasn't really kind of worked out. The same with Aubameyang. He got his big move. He looks like he's on his way to Chelsea. You're right. The ego could be an issue, and I don't want there to be a player in the dressing room, like I said earlier, Pogba and Mourinho, where it's clashing and it affects the rest. So as a player, I would take him on a free transfer if it was rotational, but I am leaning towards the side of, let's not. I don't want to have players like Bergwijn in the team where they're not getting any game time. Same with Ndombele and Celso. If someone's on the bench, I want them to know that they're going to come off the bench and make an impact, not sit there. I mean, the likes of Ndombele is on over 200 grand a week, and he can't even get a kick at Lyon. We can't even give him away at the moment.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But with Memphis, in his mind, if he was to consider joining Tottenham, he's coming from Barcelona, so he's probably in his mind already thinking that's a step down coming from Tottenham from Barcelona.
And he's going to want to start where
he's going to want to have consistent minutes, exactly. And I don't think we can afford to give him that with Kane, Son, Richarlison, Kulusevski. All these players are going to be ahead of him in the pecking order, aren't they?
I think Juventus are after him. Like they're the big runner in the race, which actually suits them because they've got Vlahovic, and it looks like Morata's going to leave, so maybe Depay slots in. So you wouldn't be disappointed if you were a Juventus fan. And with that league, it's a lot slower, so Depay's going to get more time on the ball. Coming to Tottenham, it's not necessarily going to work out. You've got Kane and Son there as well. Plus Kulu now. Yeah, I probably would reject it.
Yeah, agreed. Let's talk about some outgoings now, and let's start off with Tanguy and Ndombele. It seems though clubs are finally starting to line up for him. Interestingly enough, first one from Fabrizio Romano, and he says Napoli are among the clubs interested in Tanguy Ndombele. And a publication called Mediafoot, I'm not sure how reliable they are, but they say Newcastle United are in pole position to sign Ndombele from Tottenham this summer. I mean, wouldn't mind a bit of a bidding war on Tanguy. I mean, finally, some people are starting to get interested.
Do you know what? Newcastle, I was looking at it earlier. I was looking at their midfield and I thought, okay, they've got Joelinton now. They've got John Joe Shelvey and they've got Bruno Guimaraes. But there's no one else. There's no one else in there, really, who they rely on. Would Ndombele go there? You know what he'd do? He'd probably go there and light a firework and be amazing there. But
probably,
I can see him joining. If Zielinski leaves Napoli, which a lot of teams, even West Ham, were interested, could he go there? But I think he will join. For some reason, my head's telling me Villarreal. I think he'll leave. Hasn't played in the Spanish league yet. Obviously played in France, played in England. Would suit him. A lot of time on the ball. Ndombele is a fantastic dribbler. He's great in the transition between defense and attack. He's great at taking on a few players
when he wants to be. Yeah,
when he wants to be, he's a fantastic dribbler. It's just there's something wrong with Ndombele's mindset where you've got all the ability, all the tech, but you're just a lazy git, and I don't understand it. Like all of us, when we like football fans, grew up wanting to be footballers, and then you've got someone who's blessed with so much ability and just don't use it. I don't understand it.
It hurts me. It hurts me to see a player of that talent, because you're talking about someone that's probably got the technical ability to match anyone in the Premier League. Literally, that's how good he actually is.
Yeah, I agree.
And it just pains me to think that we've got a player like that on our books, but we just can't utilize him. It's just so frustrating.
200 grand a week as well we've got a scary amount of wages we're paying every month for a player that's not getting in. That's like the way the Barcelona play.
Do you think any of these clubs will be stupid enough to try and pick him up on a permanent deal, or do you think it's more just going to be like a loan with a potential option to buy or something?
Yeah, I think it's going to be loan with an option or an obligation to buy, depending on performance. I can't see Napoli coming in and saying we'll pay Ndombele 200 grand a week, or Villarreal, considering Villarreal.
We're just going to be back in this situation next summer, aren't we?
Yeah, it's going to be the same. It's going to, until he goes and sets the world alight at a team, it's going to do this until his contract finishes, and they'll go on a free.
So frustrating. But anyway, that's Ndombele. Let's move on to Giovanni Lo Celso. As we brought you yesterday or a couple of days ago, that Fiorentina and Villarreal both very interested in acquiring the services of Giovanni Lo Celso. But the Fiorentina director of football says today that we are no longer going for Giovanni Lo Celso. There's nothing done with Tottenham. And Fabrizio Romano has said that Giovanni is a top target and a top priority for Emery and Villarreal. Mate Moretto says that Villarreal and Tottenham are discussing a loan deal for Giovanni Celso, but without a purchase option, which is very interesting. When all this news came out about other clubs being linked with him, I always thought it was always just maybe to hurry up Villarreal or something like that. I mean, his heart was always set on Villarreal, wasn't it?
Yeah, I agree. And do you know what? When he played under Emery at Villarreal, I think he got back-to-back Man of the Match awards in the Champions League last season. So with Gio, he's like a low-key baller, but he just doesn't suit the Prem. Because when he plays in Spain, when he was at Betis, he got something like 17 league goals in all comps for Betis.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. And anyone who knows me and watches my channel knows that I rate Unai Emery as a coach. To win 4 Europa Leagues, you have to be a top coach. And if he sees something in him, and he's had him on loan and he wants him back, then clearly Unai Emery can get something out of him. And Conte doesn't have the time. He wants players that are going to work now. Bissouma, Skip, Højbjerg, Bentancur. But Giovanni Lo Celso and Ndombele do not fit into our plans. But it's strange that he'd go there without an option to buy it. I think personally it will be an option to buy on the deal.
You would think so, because like Villarreal seem dead set on getting him. He seems dead set of going there. If there's no option to buy, I just imagine next summer being the exact same situation. Villarreal going for another loan move and all that kind of stuff. What, are they just going to keep loaning him every year till his contract runs out? It's a bit ridiculous, but is what it is, I guess. And when you buy these kind of players, like when you cast your mind back to that transfer window when we bought Ndombele, Lo Celso, Sessegnon, I think there was one Jack Clark as well. I mean, what a bad transfer window that was. It's absolutely
terrible.
mad.
Absolutely terrible. Over 100 million we spent, and Jack Clark's gone to Sunderland, and Ndombele and Celso can't get a game at Spurs.
I know, and nobody will take him. It's ridiculous. And you're talking about Giovanni Lo Celso and Ndombele at the time being like two of the most sought after midfielders in Europe as well.
Yeah, I mean, at one point, Ndombele was one of the most attractive prospects in Europe. He had that two Champions League games against Man City where Leon actually went through and they couldn't get near him. He had, Rodri and Fernandinho and strings. Couldn't get anywhere near him.
I know. Let's move on. I'm fed up of talking about Ndombele and Lo Celso, to be honest. Let's talk about Bryan Gil. Fabrizio Romano saying that Valencia have asked for Bryan Gil on loan after Sociedad did a few days ago. Tottenham have not reached full agreement with any club yet. Talks on for Bryan Gil, but there's no green light from Tottenham yet. It's an open race. Obviously, Valencia have let Guedes go to Wolves, so they need to replace him. And obviously, he had a good loan spell there last season as well. So I do suspect probably he will end up at Valencia. But what's your opinion on Bryan Gil in general as a player?
First things first, that Gonzalo Guedes who's left Valencia, he's a player. He seems to be a top player. Bryan Gil, I've got mixed feelings about because no one really knows what he excels at. Is he a fantastic dribbler? Can he shoot outside the box? Is he a playmaker? Is he a fantastic crosser of the ball? He kind of seems to be like a jack of all trades, master of none, where we're just kind of waiting for him to do his own thing. I personally would rather him get a loan to a lower league Premier League club and get used to this league.
That's what I said, yeah.
With him joining Valencia, fantastic, great. Go and get minutes and go and build up your game and get more confidence. Do it in this league. Do it in a league where you're owned by a football club. Like I'm all for a fan of what if you watch what Chelsea do, they loan out a lot of their players. You know, Broja, Livramento, I think went on a permanent. Conor Gallagher, they're all at Premier League clubs. So when they come back, they go, okay, I'm fine with the Premier League. Bryan Hill seems to be about 3 stone 2 light, and just has no confidence. But we don't really know what's happening. Is Valencia the right move for him? I'm not so sure. But
it depends what our plan is with him, to be honest. It depends if Conte wants to use him in the future, wants to bring him back, or does he want to just cut his losses and let him go? It depends what our plan is.
Well, I will say one thing. Fair play to Paratici, because at least he's exploring all avenues for these players. You know, Bergwijn's gone. Joe Rodon's gone out on loan. Celso is about to get. We're about to get the here we go. Hopefully, he's still going to get rid of Ndombele. Cameron Carter-Vickers has gone. Jack Clark's gone. So he's identified that these players are deadwood. It's just with Bryan Hill, there's just a question mark above him. Is he going to go and set the world alight in La Liga, or maybe someone like I'd like to see someone like maybe not even Fulham, maybe a lower league Premier League team that's struggling. Someone like Forest to be perfect for him. New to the Premier League, go down there, see what you can do. If he does well, come back, maybe start on the bench and we can slowly integrate him into the team. Otherwise, it's the same with Lo Celso and Ndombele. Or we're going to just keep loaning him out until his contract runs down. And this is a kid that we sold. We got rid of Lamela and we gave 25 million for, and at the moment he can't get a game. So
in hindsight, that was a terrible deal, to be honest, because we could have used Lamela last season. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's hindsight's a wonderful thing, but it is what it is.
Yeah. All right, that is the transfer stuff that we got to talk about today. But we've got some interesting quotes from Matt Law talking about Don Fabio Paratici today, and we'll get through some of them and see what you have to think about them. The first one that we're going to talk about is that some sources were adamant that Paratici would no longer be at Tottenham were it not for the appointment of Antonio Conte last November. I mean, what sort of sliding doors moment could that have been if we didn't lose that game and Conte never came to Spurs? I mean, things could have been so different, couldn't they?
That Man United loss was one of the best things that's ever happened to us.
It's probably the best game of the season last year.
No, genuinely, because if Paratici would have gone, we wouldn't have got Conte, and which meant we wouldn't have got Bentancur and Kulusevski. And this entire window we've got now could be on its head. Yeah. We've done 7 signings or 7 deals, we'll call it, because some are loans, some are buys and whatnot. But you could see that the lowest I've felt as a Spurs fan, and we've experienced some big lows. You know, the cultures to defeat 7-2 by Bayern Munich, the Mura loss, etc. But
the Sherwood era, don't forget the Sherwood era.
Yeah, I mean, when we couldn't even get a shot on target under Nuno. I mean, players like Harry Kane in his team, we're talking about one of the best forwards in Europe. Conte comes in and just completely transforms his team. It's a fair play, Paratici, if you're sticking around. Bringing in Conte, then they have their first window together. They bring in 2 of the best players we've got now. Yeah. And now they bring in this window that we've got now. So that could have been, it's such fine margins. If he would have gone, we'd be sitting here now with probably, well, who knows as a manager. We wouldn't have a director of football. Daniel Levy would still be doing the transfers. So, could have been completely different.
Yeah, crazy. Some more coming out from the article is that Paratici told Tottenham that branding their bus would help change the perception of the club that has so often been accused of trying to cut corners. Matchday suits were also introduced by Paratici, with the message very much that Tottenham mean business when they arrive for games. Paratici did not want Spurs simply talking of being a big club, but it was adamant they must start acting like one too. And how many times as a fan base have we said this about this club? We need to start acting like a big club. How many times did Pochettino say that as well?
Do you know what? I've got mixed feelings about this because hear me out, and this is not coming across as negative, right? I see what he means by the suits, but surely buying better players on the field would make us act like a bigger club. You can arrive in suits and then get slapped 5 or 6-0. It's all about the mindset. I'm a big fan, and not many people are, of Diego Simeone of Atletico Madrid. And what he did was, halfway through the season, he kept saying, every time you greet someone, you say champions. You say champions. Kieran Trippier said it on the True Geordie
yeah, I heard
podcast.
that. Yeah,
That's a mindset, mentality change. Wearing suits. I mean, Jurgen Klopp never wears a suit, does he? And he's made 3 out of the last 4 Champions League finals, and he's won trophies at Liverpool. He never wears a suit. Pep wears a jumper and trousers. I get what he's trying to do, and I do agree we do need to change the mindset, because at times, you know, we go into games and it'd be painful. But yeah, I get what he's doing, but maybe buy some more players. That's just the way.
Well, to be fair to him, I mean, we have done pretty well in the transfers
Yeah,
since him and Conte have been together. So I think that when you're talking about you know, acting like a big club, it's everything all together, and obviously transfers are a massive part of that. But I think the club are definitely going in the right way, so you've got to give them all the praise that they deserve at the moment. But what else has come out from this article is a confrontational and fiery figure. Paratici commands respect, but will not always win the popularity contests inside Tottenham, where doctors can be told how to do their jobs and chefs can receive criticism over the standard of the food. Chelsea staff were unhappy with the way Paratici behaved from behind the dugout during the visit to Tottenham last September. I mean, what do you make out of this kind of stuff? I mean, should he really be, you know, this kind of...
He should. Yes, he should.
What,
because
talking about the staff and stuff like that, saying your food isn't good enough and all this kind of stuff.
At the end of the day, he has high standards, the highest of the high. If you go to a restaurant and spend £100 on a steak and they come out and it's all burnt or it's blue, you're going to want your money back. So Paratici is trying to change the whole standard of the football club. We've been here for so long, but we want here. We want trophies. We want, you know, the best stadium in the world, some of the best players in the world. We're only going to get that is if we change the foundation at the bottom and build up. Okay, maybe the food is a little bit harsh, but having
how can you tell a doctor how to do their job?
Yeah, I mean that's a bit that's a bit far, but like having a fiery character alongside Conte on the dugout is what we adore. I'm a big passion.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about these specific things,
shouldn't
like
be
the doctor and the chef and this kind of stuff.
But maybe the food I can kind of lean towards, because if I paid silly money for a steak and it come out and it was awful, I'd be fuming. But the doctor, I mean, you don't tell a professional like that how to do your job. I mean, that's a bit far.
Well, having said that, the medical staff at Spurs haven't been the greatest, have they?
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we I think we've changed some of the medical staff in the last year and a bit, because touch wood, our injuries have gone down quite a lot. I mean, Harry Kane at one point was getting injured like every season with his ankle.
Yeah.
So they've spent a bit more money on that. But you are right. I mean, the medical staff at Spurs sometimes has been atrocious.
And the last bit is Paratici told Kane that City only bid £85 million plus £15 million in add-ons, was not one that demonstrated a realistic desire to sign him. Those involved in talks about Kane's future described Paratici's impact as phenomenal. So apparently Paratici was very central to keeping Harry Kane at the club last summer.
Yeah, I mean, 85 million plus 15 million in add-ons for me is not enough.
Nowhere near, to be honest.
Harry Maguire went for 80 million. Fofana
Grealish went for 100.
Yeah,
the same window.
Fofana's got 80-odd million pound bids. We're talking about, at the time, the Golden Boot winner and the most assists in the Premier League. At the time, arguably the best forward in the world. I know you might debate now with Erling Haaland, etc., and other players. I'd still put Kane up there as top 3.
I still put him up there as top, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's ridiculous. 85 million plus 15 million add-ons is like a kick in the teeth, really. You know, West Ham won 150 million for Declan Rice. We want top money for our top player. You're talking about arguably the best player Spurs have had in the Premier League era. I know before that you had like Glenn Hoddle, etc., Jimmy Greaves before that. But Harry Kane is a top player, world-class talent. That sort of bid is, you know, is just taking the piss a little bit, really.
Really is. But anyway, let's go on to the last bit of the show, and we're going to look at 2 players that played last night for their loan clubs, Troy Parrott and Dane Scarlett. Troy Parrott scored his first goal for Preston in a 4-1 away win at Huddersfield in the Carabao Cup first round last night. I don't know if you saw the goal, but it was a nice little poacher's finish from a rebound. And I'm hearing glowing reports already from Troy Parrott out for Preston in the game that he played in the Championship on his debut. Apparently his link-up play was second to none. He was dropping deep. He was helping out his team. And he was getting a few shots on goal. Didn't get on the score sheet, but playing really well. So happy days, isn't it, Henry?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? They both want to be at Tottenham long term. Troy Parrott is great for him to get on the score sheet. Hopefully Preston can be the loan spell that he needs, because he's kind of been, I think he's been at Millwall, MK Dons, Ipswich, hasn't really ever, fired from the beginning. Now he has. Hopefully he can get confidence and build on this, because if the plan is he comes back next season and he is going to be, in the squad, we want him coming back obviously the best he can be. And with Dane Scarlett, I've actually watched a couple of I've actually been at some of the games, watched him play, and he seems to be a top player. Like I would rate Dane Scarlett higher than Parrott. I know he's a few years younger, but he seems to be a top player. Hopefully he can do the same. He can go and get a loan move. I think Portsmouth are in League One, aren't they? So tough league. Hopefully he can come back a new player. I think he's going to need a couple more loan spells personally, and put on a bit more, size, because the Premier League's physical. But it's positive. Everything around the club at the moment is positive. I've never felt our football club so like all on the same page at the same time. Even with Conte, you see him on the touchline, and it's just the man's he's just a beast at the moment. And hopefully we can have a really good season.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. And just to touch on Dane Scarlett, he did make his first start for Portsmouth last night in a 3-0 away win at Cardiff in the Carabao Cup. Yeah. And I was messaging a Portsmouth fan who was at the game, and he gave me a little 3-line report on his performance. I'll just read it out for you guys. And he says, "He did really well, mate. Looks wise beyond his years. Has this way of holding up play during an attack to make sure he has players around him at all times. Really pleased with how he's doing, and a 3-0 win helps too." So for his debut, couldn't really ask for much more. I know he didn't get on the score sheet, but to hear those words from a Portsmouth fan, great to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know what, the goals will come with him. But at what is he, 18, 19 years of age to go into Portsmouth? 3-0 win, you can't really ask for more. Just the goals will come. It's just it's going to take time. So basically, good stuff.
Big up. All right, Henry, thanks for coming on today. Everyone go and subscribe to Henry Wright TV. Some great Spurs content on there. And thanks for joining me. And we'll speak to you very soon. I guess subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.
Come on you Spurs.